But when you're confronted with somebody that says, well, I don't believe that Jesus was God, you'd say, well, I want to take you just through one of the Gospels. Now, in the Gospels, you have how many Gospels? 4. Matthew answers the question, what did Jesus say? So the majority of Matthew is a summary of his speeches. Mark answers the question, what did Jesus do? They skipped the speeches, skipped the genealogies. He healed somebody, and then straightway Athus, he went and raised someone from the dead, then he chased the demon out. It's action, man. What did he do? Luke answers the question, who followed him? Thus it is Luke who tells us all the little biographical tidbits. I love those stories about the old people, you know, there, Simeon and Anna in the temple. Nobody else tells you those sweet stories. I love them old people loving Jesus. It just gets me. But what question does John answer? Who is he? We've seen what he said, what he did, and who'd follow. Well, who in the world was he? Thus, it is John's gospel that is unique in giving us the I ams. They're not found in the other gospel writers. John is selecting out of the life and teachings of Jesus material that proves that he was God. And from chapter 1 all the way through to the end, he is maintaining that we must understand that Jesus was not simply a rabbi, not simply a prophet, not simply a nice guy. He was deity in human form. Now I want you to be able to write in your Bible so you now have a chain of verses. You begin with John 1:1. In the beginning. That phrase in Greek is the same as found in the Greek version of the Old Testament in Genesis 1:1. Without a doubt, no question, no scholar doubts it. John was saying when the creation event happened. I translate it when the beginning began, and the word beginning with a capital B, because there was nothing that existed before this beginning but God. When the beginning began, the Word already was. The word was is in the tense that indicates the Word, the Logos, was in existence before the creation of the universe. Now it becomes very, very easy. The Word was in eternity and not in space and time. If the Word existed before the creation, then ipso facto, the Word cannot be part of the creation. It does not say when the beginning began, the Word began. The Word was created. The Word was made. It says the Word already was when the beginning began. And the Word before the beginning began was in a face-to-face relationship with God. And we know from further down in the passage, verse 18, God the Father. So here in Johannine thought, he's saying, listen, you must understand that the Word is eternal and existed from all eternity. It did not come into existence at the creation. It already was. And the Word was in an intimate relationship with the Father before the universe was created. And the Word was, as to His own nature, God as well. Now, in the Greek language, when you want to emphasize a word, because the New Testament was written to be read out loud, not to be read silently. How many of you know that? That's because you've been under me. They didn't have photocopy machines. The pastor would get up and read out loud the book of Romans or Mark or John. You were listening. And there are ways in the Greek language to indicate to you when you emphasize a word. You take a word out of its natural word order and you move it to the front of the phrase or sentence to indicate to the one who is reading this out loud, hey, hey, ninny, yoo-hoo, nimnu. This is the word you must emphasize when you're reading this. When the beginning began, the Word already existed. And the Word was at that time in a face-to-face, intimate relationship with God the Father. And the Word was God. Because the word God in the Greek is put at the front where it should not be. It should be at the end, like it is in English, but John takes it, puts it over here so that when it was read, you would read the word God with an emphasis. The word was God. Do you see how anemic and anticlimactic the Jehovah's were? And the word was a God. See, there's no climax. When the beginning began, the Word already was. And the Word was in a face-to-face relationship with God. And the Word was God. This actually is part of a pre-Johannine hymn or Christian poetry. And it goes on. He was there in the beginning of the creation with God the Father when the solar flares were ignited, when God scattered the stars like a farmer scatters seed in the field. He was there. He was there when God flung out comets. He was there when He made the universe in orbits like they were yo-yos. He was there when man was created. He was there when the world and all of its creatures. But more than simply being there when creation took place, all things came into being through His agency. By Him, through Him, meaning He did it. Well, then who ignited? Who took out his bick and flicked the bick and started those suns? Who spit out comets and like spitballs? Who's keeping all the planets in their orbits? The Word created the universe. There was nothing that came into existence except through Him, and apart from Him, nothing came into being that has come into being. Then ipso facto, He can't be a created thing that came into being. Impossible. Anyone who denies it, you must use the Latin imbecile.